The next morning, chaos rippled across the nation. Every Mid-Atlantic Airlines flight was grounded. News outlets scrambled for explanations while stranded passengers flooded social media with outrage. But inside headquarters, Marcus Jackson stood firm. He addressed the press directly. "This isn't a technical failure, it's accountability. Mid-Atlantic Airlines will not fly until we confront systemic discrimination within our ranks." His words stunned the industry. Never before had a major carrier halted operations for moral reform. Behind closed doors, the boardroom seethed. Victor Harrington, the airline's most influential executive, slammed his fist on the table. "You've lost your mind, Marcus. This company bleeds millions every hour. Your daughter's tantrum doesn't justify burning it to the ground." Marcus met his glare evenly. "This isn't about my daughters, it's about every passenger and employee who's been silenced, humiliated, or pushed out. If we don't change, lawsuits and regulators will destroy us anyway. I'd rather rebuild now than bury the company later." The board was split. Some admired his conviction, others feared financial ruin. The showdown had begun, with Marcus fighting for transformation and Victor plotting to seize control. Zara and Nia Jackson arrived at Denver International Airport, excited for their flight to Boston. College visits awaited them, and their father had secured first-class tickets as both a gift and recognition of their achievements. The girls, smartly dressed and carrying the quiet confidence of preparation, approached the gate with passports and boarding passes ready. Instead of a warm welcome, they were met with cold suspicion. Richard Whitman, the gate agent, studied their documents as though they were counterfeit. His frown deepened, and his voice carried across the waiting area. "We've got a security concern here," he announced, drawing stares. The twins flushed with embarrassment as murmurs spread through the terminal. A second agent, Trevor Reynolds, arrived and without explanation switched their first-class seats to economy. "Certain people don't belong up front," he muttered under his breath. The humiliation deepened when a TSA officer, Vanessa Miller, pulled them aside for an invasive screening. Shoes removed, bags emptied, the sisters were treated like suspects rather than paying passengers. By the time they were cleared, their flight had closed. Stranded, exhausted, and shaken, Zara and Nia realized this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was discrimination, and it was only the beginning. When Zara and Nia returned home that night, their father was waiting. Marcus Jackson, calm yet visibly shaken by their accounts, listened without interruption as his daughters described each humiliation: the false security alert, the downgraded tickets, the invasive search, and finally, the restaurant's dismissal. He took detailed notes, asking for names, times, and every detail they could recall. Then his tone shifted. "You need to understand something," he told them, his eyes steady. "You weren't just mistreated as passengers, you were targeted." The twins, still raw with emotion, expected sympathy, but not what came next. Marcus revealed that he wasn't just any concerned father. He was the newly appointed CEO of Mid-Atlantic Airlines, the very company whose staff had humiliated them. His rise to the position had been quiet, known only to the board and a select circle. Zara and Nia sat stunned. The irony was overwhelming. The airline that had treated them as outsiders was now under the leadership of their own father. "This changes everything," Nia whispered. Marcus nodded. "It does, but change won't come easily. What happened to you is part of something much bigger, and now it's my responsibility to confront it." The storm reached Washington. The White House press secretary confirmed the Department of Transportation had opened a full review of Mid-Atlantic's practices. Members of Congress demanded hearings, framing the scandal as proof of industry-wide rot. Meanwhile, mainstream media amplified the twins' story. Their detailed online post, measured, factual, supported by documentation, was hailed as devastating in its restraint. It gave voice to countless passengers who came forward with similar accounts. Soon, Mid-Atlantic wasn't the only airline under scrutiny. Competitors faced questions too. Marcus seized the moment. Flanked by Zara and Nia, he delivered a live statement from headquarters. Calm but unyielding, he announced sweeping reforms: mandatory anti-discrimination training, transparent reporting systems, an independent review board, and a passenger bill of rights. Most controversially, he insisted the very employees who had wronged his daughters would help design the reforms. "Termination may satisfy anger," he explained, "but transformation requires accountability." Reaction was divided. Critics called it too lenient, but many praised the visionary approach. For Marcus, it wasn't about optics, it was about breaking a cycle. Victor, cornered and furious, tried one last maneuver, rallying business partners to threaten Mid-Atlantic's survival, but Marcus had prepared for that too. Half a year passed, and Mid-Atlantic Airlines looked nothing like the company that had humiliated Zara and Nia. The reforms Marcus had announced were no longer promises, they were reality. Employees underwent rigorous training that tackled unconscious bias and bystander intervention. An anonymous reporting system gave both passengers and staff the power to flag discrimination without fear of retaliation. For the first time, complaints were met with action, not silence. At the heart of this transformation was the Accountability Council. To avoid scapegoating, Marcus required the original offenders, Richard Whitman, Trevor Reynolds, Vanessa Miller, and even Diane Blackett, to participate alongside civil rights experts and customers who had faced discrimination. At first, sessions were tense, filled with defensiveness and anger, but slowly, listening broke down walls. Diane, in particular, confronted her role in perpetuating the system she once endured. Her emotional admission became a turning point. Analysts had predicted financial disaster, but the opposite occurred. Customer satisfaction rose, employee turnover declined, and corporations praised Mid-Atlantic's ethical leadership. What Victor Harrington had called corporate suicide was turning into a competitive advantage. Now, Zara and Nia prepared to board another flight, back at the same gate where everything had begun. Victor Harrington refused to watch his influence slip away. From his office, he orchestrated a counter-offensive designed to ruin Marcus Jackson. He leaked half-truths to the media, painting Marcus as unstable, too emotional to lead a Fortune 500 airline. His allies on Wall Street whispered that Mid-Atlantic was collapsing under personal vendettas. Worse, Victor targeted Marcus's daughters directly. Anonymous accounts began spreading rumors online, questioning Zara and Nia's behavior at the airport, twisting their resistance into defiance. Fake witnesses emerged, claiming the girls had been disruptive, even dangerous. Though the lies were crude, repetition gave them traction. At the same time, Victor pressured longtime business partners. Partner airlines quietly threatened to dissolve codeshare agreements. Corporate clients warned they'd move their travel accounts elsewhere if Marcus stayed in power. The message was clear: Marcus's crusade endangered profits. But Marcus and his daughters weren't unprepared. The twins, digitally savvy and meticulous, had documented everything: screenshots, recordings, timestamps. Every smear campaign traced back to Victor's network. They began assembling a digital case so airtight it could withstand any attack. The battle was no longer just about flights. It was about truth versus manipulation, and the Jacksons were ready to fight. The scandal refused to fade. News outlets replayed the footage of Zara and Nia's downgrade on endless loops, while opinion pieces debated whether Marcus Jackson was an overprotective father or a visionary leader confronting systemic rot. Inside Mid-Atlantic's boardroom, tensions reached a breaking point. Victor Harrington seized on the chaos. At an emergency meeting, he accused Marcus of sabotaging the airline's reputation with his personal crusade. Slamming a dossier of financial forecasts onto the table, Victor warned that corporate clients were threatening to pull contracts. "Shareholders won't tolerate idealism over profit," he sneered. But Marcus didn't flinch. He countered with a plan for immediate reforms: independent oversight, transparent reporting systems, and public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Some executives shifted uncomfortably, others looked intrigued. Yet Victor's allies whispered about Marcus's emotional instability, trying to paint him as reckless. At home, Zara and Nia watched the coverage with a mix of pride and fear. They knew their father was fighting for them, but also understood the stakes. The airline industry was ruthless, and Victor would not surrender easily. For Marcus, the choice was clear. Protecting his daughter's dignity mattered more than any corporate throne. Still reeling from the ordeal at the airport, Zara and Nia tried to salvage the evening by eating at a nearby restaurant. They hoped food might restore some normalcy, but the pattern of mistreatment continued. Keith Dawson, the restaurant manager, eyed them suspiciously as they entered. Despite open tables, he claimed there was no seating available. When they pressed politely, he relented, but placed them at a wobbly table near the kitchen doors. Their server took ages to appear, and when he finally did, his tone was clipped, almost hostile. The sisters endured whispered remarks from staff nearby. One waiter muttered, "They always want special treatment," loud enough to be heard. When their food finally arrived, it was cold and clearly mishandled. Nia tried to complain calmly, but Dawson intervened with a smirk. "Maybe this place just isn't for you," he said, dismissing their concerns entirely. Zara clenched her fists under the table, struggling to keep her composure. 2 humiliations in one day couldn't be coincidence. Something larger was at work, a system determined to make them feel small. They left quietly, their appetite gone, unaware that witnesses were already recording what had happened, evidence that would soon prove invaluable. At Denver International's Gate 32, Zara and Nia handed their boarding passes to a smiling agent who treated them no differently than any other passenger. For most travelers, it was a routine moment. For the twins, it symbolized how far things had come. 6 months earlier, this same gate had stripped them of dignity. Today, it offered quiet justice. As they settled into first-class seats, Captain Rodriguez welcomed passengers. His voice ended with a name that caught their attention. Cabin service led by Diane Blackett. Moments later, Diane herself approached. She paused, her voice soft. "I wanted to thank you both. What you did changed this airline. And me. I'm sorry for my part in it." The twins, surprised, accepted her words with grace. "It wasn't easy," Zara said, "but necessary things rarely are." Across the industry, Mid-Atlantic's reforms had sparked broader change. Other carriers launched their own anti-discrimination programs under mounting public pressure. Congressional hearings kept executives accountable. As the plane touched down in Boston, Zara glimpsed a young black girl staring out a window with excitement instead of fear. The sight filled her with quiet pride. Their struggle had mattered. The future was brighter because they refused to be invisible.